Welcome everyone to today's debate. We're talking about something all parents worry about. Should parents push their kids to study? I'm Kate, and I'll help guide our talk today. We have three great guests here. Sarah thinks parents should push their kids to study hard. Elena thinks parents shouldn't push their kids. And David is an education expert who will share his thoughts with us. Sarah, let's start with you.
Thanks, Kate. I really think parents should push their kids to study. And here's why. Kids don't think about the future like adults do. They want fun stuff right now. Video games, hanging out with friends, watching TV. If parents don't push them, most kids would never do homework or read books. They'd just play all day. Look at famous, successful people. Almost all of them had parents who made them work hard. Tiger Woods' dad made him practice golf for hours every day. Mozart's father taught him music and didn't let him quit. These parents saw their kids had talent and made sure they didn't waste it. Today's world is really competitive. Kids who don't study hard can't get into good colleges or find good jobs later. Parents who don't push their kids are actually hurting their future. It's like not teaching them to brush their teeth. It seems mean now, but it helps them later. Also, when kids learn to study hard, they learn other important things too. They learn to not give up when things get hard. They learn to set goals and work toward them. They learn that hard work pays off. These lessons help them in everything they do as adults, their jobs, their relationships, everything.
I understand why Sarah feels this way, but I really disagree. When parents push kids too hard to study, it often makes things worse, not better. Kids today have so much stress and worry, and a lot of it comes from parents pushing them too hard about school. Every kid is different. They learn in different ways, they're interested in different things, and they grow up at different speeds. When we push all kids to do the same things in the same way, it doesn't work. It's like trying to make a round peg fit in a square hole. This makes kids hate learning instead of loving it. Also, kids who really want to learn do much better than kids who are forced to learn. When kids are pushed, they're only doing it to make their parents happy, not because they really care. Research shows that kids who want to learn on their own do better in the long run. They're more creative and they keep learning even when they grow up. Sarah talked about Tiger Woods and Mozart, but what about all the kids who were pushed hard and then had problems? For every famous person who was pushed and became successful, there are many more who got burned out, became sad or worried, or started hating their parents. Instead of pushing, parents should help and support their kids. When kids feel safe to try new things and make mistakes, they learn better. When they can explore what they like, they're more likely to become really good at something and be happy too.
Both Sarah and Elena make good points about how to help kids learn. As someone who studies education, I've seen what happens with both ways of parenting. Sarah is right that kids need help and rules to learn important skills. Kids' brains don't fully grow up until they're in their 20s. The part that helps them plan for the future and control themselves isn't ready yet. So kids do need adults to help them make good choices. But Elena is also right to worry about putting too much pressure on kids. there's a big difference between helpful challenge and harmful pressure. The best way is to give kids just enough challenge to help them grow, but not so much that they feel scared or worried all the time. The most helpful thing parents can do is give kids support while they face challenges. This means understanding each kid's personality and what they need, then giving them challenges that help them grow without making them feel bad about themselves.
That's really interesting, David. Sarah, what do you think about Elena's worry that pushing kids might hurt their mental health?
Elena brings up good points, but I think she's mixing up pushing with being mean or too harsh. When I say parents should push kids, I don't mean yelling at them or making them scared. I mean loving parents who won't let their kids give up when they know the kids can do better. The mental health problems Elena talks about don't come from parents having high hopes for their kids. They come from kids not knowing how to deal with hard things. When kids are never challenged, they don't learn how to be strong. So when hard things happen later in life, they can't handle it. There's good stress and bad stress. Good stress is like having to do homework or practice piano. This kind of stress helps kids get stronger and more confident. When kids work hard and succeed, they feel really good about themselves. If kids never have any pressure, they never get to feel that great feeling of earning something difficult. Also, Elena talks about kids wanting to learn on their own, but that usually starts with parents making rules first. I love playing piano now, but I only started because my parents made me practice even when I didn't want to. That outside push became inside love for music later.
Sarah makes some points worth thinking about, but I think she's missing something really important. There's a big difference between helping kids and pushing them. When we push kids, we're basically telling them they're only good if they get good grades. This makes kids think their parents only love them when they do well, which is really bad for how they feel about themselves. Sarah talks about being strong, but real strength comes from kids choosing their own challenges and learning to handle problems they care about. When challenges are forced on them through pushing, kids don't become really strong. They just learn to do what others want and worry about disappointing people. The research is clear about this. Kids who are pushed really hard in school have more problems cheating, feeling worried and sad, and using drugs or alcohol. They might get good grades, but they don't know how to motivate themselves. When they get to college and no one is pushing them anymore, they often struggle. About music and other activities, yes, sometimes kids need a little push to try something new. But for every kid who learns to love piano because their parents made them practice, there are many more kids who end up hating music completely. Research shows that rewards and pressure from outside actually make kids less interested in learning, not more.
This conversation shows exactly why this topic is so hard and why there's no simple answer. You're both talking about real things that happen to different kids in different situations. Sarah is right that kids need to feel good at things, to feel confident about themselves. Research shows that feeling capable is one of 3 basic things all people need to feel good. Kids do need to experience success and achievement to feel good about themselves. But Elena's worries about conditional love and hurting kids' natural desire to learn are also backed up by research. The most important thing is how parents communicate their expectations and how they put them into practice. Good parental involvement means being supportive rather than controlling. Supportive parents set clear expectations and give structure, but they also explain why they have these expectations. They listen to their kids' feelings and give choices when possible. They show their love no matter what, while still expecting their kids to try hard. Controlling parents use guilt, threats, or pressure to make their kids do things. They only care about results, not about effort or learning. This approach might work for a short time, but it often leads to the problems Elena talked about. Research shows the best approach combines high expectations with lots of support. These parents do push their children, but they do it in ways that help the child's independence and natural love of learning instead of hurting it.
This really shows how complex this issue is. Elena, after hearing David explain supportive versus controlling approaches, do you think there might be some middle ground where some parental pushing could be good? David's explanation is helpful, and I like his balanced approach. I guess my problem isn't really with all kinds of parental expectations. It's specifically with what most people mean when they say pushing. Usually, pushing means ignoring what kids want, putting pressure on them to get certain results, and caring more about success than about the kids' happiness and natural growth. If we're talking about supportive approaches, setting clear expectations while still respecting what kids want and need emotionally, then I'm more open to that. But I still think we need to be really careful about how we do this, even when we're being supportive. Kids are all different. They have different personalities, interests, and they grow at different speeds. What looks like laziness to parents might actually be a kid who learns differently, who's going through a hard time growing up, or who just has different strengths than what the parent thinks is important in school. I also worry about the world we live in now. We already live in a place where everyone cares a lot about achieving and competing. Kids are already getting messages from everywhere that they're only worth something if they perform well. I think parents should balance this out. They should be the safe place where kids are loved for who they are, not what they achieve. I believe kids naturally want to learn when they feel safe, independent, and connected to others. If a kid doesn't seem motivated in school instead of pushing harder, we should look at what might be getting in the way. Are they having trouble learning? Are they stressed about other things? Do they need to be challenged in a different way?
Elena, I'm glad you're willing to find some middle ground, but I think you're still too idealistic about kids naturally wanting to learn and too worried about the effects of having expectations. The truth is, learning often means doing things that aren't fun right away. Math practice, grammar exercises, memorizing history facts. These basic skills aren't always interesting, but they're really important for later learning that is more fun. If we wait for kids to naturally want to learn all the necessary things, many will fall behind in important skills they'll need later. By the time they realize they need these skills, it might be too late to learn them well. This is where loving, supportive pushing becomes really important. I also think Elena doesn't give kids enough credit for being able to handle expectations and challenges. Kids are stronger than we often think they are. When we have high expectations and give good support, kids often do better than we expected. When we have low expectations because we're worried about their feelings, we might actually be limiting what they can do and telling them we don't think they can be excellent. Also, the competitive world Elena mentions isn't going away. Getting into college, finding jobs, and many parts of adult life are competitive. Parents who don't prepare their kids for this reality, who don't push them to develop the skills and work habits they'll need to compete, are actually hurting their kids. I want to be clear. I'm not talking about being mean, punishing, or emotionally hurtful. I'm talking about parents who love their kids enough to insist on their best effort, who give structure and accountability, and who show they believe their kids can do great things. This kind of pushing, done with love and support, builds character and ability.
Sarah makes an important point about sometimes needing to learn skills that aren't immediately fun, and she's right that basic skills often need outside structure to develop. However, I think there's still an important difference in how we approach this challenge. The key thing we've learned from studying education is that outside motivation can actually help inside motivation when it's done right. For example, when parents create structure around practicing piano, but they also help the child see their progress, celebrate effort and not just results, and connect the practice to what the child is interested in musically, the outside structure can help develop inside motivation. Problems happen when outside pressure becomes controlling instead of supportive, when it only focuses on results instead of learning and growing, or when it doesn't consider if the child is ready or what makes them different from other kids. Sarah's point about preparing kids for competitive situations is good. But research shows that kids who develop strong inside motivation and self-control actually do better in competitive situations than those who are mainly motivated from outside. They're more creative, bounce back better from failure, and keep trying even when there are no outside rewards. The goal should be to slowly give kids more control over their own learning. This means starting with more outside structure when kids are young and slowly giving them more independence as they develop the skills to handle it. The most successful students are those who eventually learn to direct their own learning, and this is more likely to happen when parents use supportive rather than controlling approaches.
As we finish our discussion, I'd like each of you to give a final statement that sums up your position, maybe including what you've learned from the others. Sarah, would you like to start?
Thank you, Kate. After listening to Elena and David, I want to make clear that when I talk about pushing children, I mean what David called authoritative parenting. High expectations with lots of support. I believe kids need parents who are willing to insist on their best effort and who don't accept okay when they know their child can do much better. But I also understand Elena's concerns about how pushing is often done wrong. I'm not talking about being harsh, controlling, or emotionally hurtful. The pushing I support is done with love. paying attention to each child's individual needs and where they are in growing up, and with the goal of building ability and character, not just getting external measures of success. I still strongly believe that kids need outside structure and expectations to develop many important skills and habits. Natural motivation, while important, isn't enough by itself to make sure kids develop all the abilities they'll need to succeed in life. Parents who are afraid to have high expectations or to insist on effort and not giving up are not really helping their children in the long run. The key is to push with wisdom, love, and attention to the whole child, not just their school performance, but their emotional well-being, their individual strengths and challenges, and their growing sense of independence. When done this way, pushing becomes a form of love that helps children discover what they can do and develop the strength they'll need throughout their lives.
I'm grateful for this thoughtful discussion, and I appreciate both Sarah's explanations and David's expertise. While I still have concerns about the word pushing and what it usually means, I can see there's a range of parental involvement, and not all high expectations are harmful. My main belief is still that children's emotional well-being and sense of independence should be the most important things in how we approach their education. Too often, academic pushing creates worry, stress, and burnout, and hurts the relationship between parents and children. Even when done with good intentions, it can tell kids that love depends on how well they perform. However, I agree that children do need guidance, structure, and sometimes outside motivation to develop important skills. The key difference I see is between supporting children's growth and pushing them towards specific outcomes that parents have decided on. Supporting means paying attention to each child's unique way of developing, learning style, and interests. It means being a guide and cheerleader rather than a boss. I also want to emphasize that many of the good things Sarah says come from pushing, strength, work ethic, not giving up, can be developed through supportive approaches that respect children's independence. When children have control in their learning and feel supported rather than pressured, they're more likely to develop real strength and inside motivation. In the end, I believe our job as parents is to create environments where children feel safe to explore, make mistakes, and discover what they love. This doesn't mean having no expectations, but it does mean that our expectations should be flexible, individualized, and always less important than our children's emotional well-being and sense of self-worth.
This has been a great discussion that shows how complex parenting and education can be. Both Sarah and Elena want what's best for their children, but they're emphasizing different parts of child development and well-being. From my view as an education expert, research strongly supports what we might call a developmental approach to how parents get involved in children's learning. This means recognizing that different children need different types and amounts of structure and support at different times as they grow up. Some children naturally motivate themselves and mainly need encouragement and resources. Others need more outside structure and accountability to develop self-control skills. Some children do well with higher expectations, while others become worried and shut down. Good parenting means knowing your individual child and changing your approach based on what they need. The key principles that research supports are keeping high expectations while giving lots of support, focusing on effort and learning rather than just results, explaining why you have certain expectations, giving choices and independence when possible, and always showing unconditional love and acceptance of the child as a person, separate from how well they perform. Whether we call this pushing or supporting is less important than how it's done. The goal should always be to help children develop into self-directed, confident, strong learners who are motivated from inside to grow and contribute to the world. Parents need to be willing to challenge their children in appropriate ways while also responding to their individual needs and emotional well-being. This is not easy. It takes wisdom, patience, and constant adjustment. But when done well, it gives children the best possible foundation for both academic success and lifelong happiness.
Thank you all for this thoughtful and detailed discussion. What strikes me most is that even though you started with different positions, you all care about children's well-being and success. This debate has shown that there's no simple answer to whether parents should push their children, but rather that the approach needs to be thoughtful, individualized, and always based on love and respect for the child. Thank you to Sarah, Elena, and David for sharing their thoughts, and thank you to our audience for joining us today.